I've often wondered, how did the disciples know what Jesus prayed in his great prayer of John 17 in Gethsemane when they were all asleep? Well, the answer is he didn't pray that prayer in Gethsemane. Look at verse 1. It was only when Jesus had finished praying that he left with his disciples and crossed the Kidron Valley where there was a garden. He prayed that prayer in the upper room. It was, if you like, a benediction at the Last Supper. What was it like to have a great prayer like that prayed over you? And only when he'd finished praying did they leave the upper room and go to Gethsemane. I put that on Google Maps. It's a very short walk. You can do it in half an hour. The most important thing only John says about Gethsemane is that when they came saying, we're looking for Jesus of Nazareth, he said, I am he. And they all drew back and fell to the ground. Why did they fall to the ground? Because he'd used the great I am, the name of God. They'd entered the presence of God and heard him say his name and were lucky to come out alive. That I am is a great theme in the Gospel of John. Now, I've read this verse often, but it only really came home to me when I saw it at Oberammergau on that great stone stage, very dramatic. When Jesus said, I am, they all stumbled back and fell down as though dead. They were lucky they weren't. And their torches rolled across the stage, flaming. One of them nearly fell into the audience, and yet not one of those torches touched against anyone else. And then it dawned on me. Jesus waited patiently while they slowly recovered, picked up their helmets and their swords and their flaming torches, and then arrested him. He could have walked off into the darkness, and they'd never have caught him. He could have called 10,000 angels, but he died alone for you and me. And then in verse 12, only John tells us that they took him first to Annas, the father-in-law of the high priest Caiaphas. Now, only John even mentions Annas, and he calls him the high priest, yet Caiaphas is the high priest. What's going on here? Well, here's a list of all the high priests from the time of Jesus' bar mitzvah to the time of his crucifixion. You will see that there are 5 of them. In the middle, there are 4 in the space of 3 years. What happened? Did a whole lot of them die? No. The issue is that the Roman governor appointed the high priest, because the high priest wasn't just a religious position. He was de facto the prime minister under the Roman governor. Now, Annas was actually the last high priest appointed by the Jews, so there were many who saw him as the true high priest. It was a sign of the ferment and unrest in Judea at the time. Here's a list of the governors at the time of Christ. Marcus Ambivalus, Annas Rufus, Valerius Gratus. Now, I don't know about you, those names really tickle my funny bone. The first one, I think, must have been hard to get a decision out of. And the names remind me of the Asterix cartoons, where he had wonderful names for the Romans. They all ended in US. Names like Christmas Bonus tickled my fancy. And my favorite of all, Dinosaurus, do you think he saw us? And so there were these 3 governors, but there was a 4th one that we don't ever make a joke about. His name also ended in US, Pontius Pilatus. But that one, Valerius Gratus, he made 4 appointments of high priest in 3 years. Why? Because he couldn't find one that really suited him. He wanted someone who would be nice and compliant and obedient to the Roman Empire. And he found him in Caiaphas. Caiaphas was one of those people who wants peace at any price. How do I know that? Because it was Caiaphas, only John tells us, who was the one who had advised the Jewish leaders that it would be good for one man to die for all the people. What he was saying is, Jesus is dispensable. He is causing trouble. Let's keep the peace at any price. And the price was the life of Jesus. He was dispensable. Caiaphas was very concerned about the unrest in Israel at the time. So was Pilate. He was working from the same basis. Peace at any price. Let me protect my position. And they had good reason to be anxious, because there was great unrest fermenting. 45 years later, it would boil over into a war against Rome with disastrous consequences for Jerusalem. Peace at any price is not peace, and comes at a terrible price.